Okay. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for allowing us to participate. We are going to have an absolutely unscripted talk to Laura Camis Wrang. How do you say that in English?
Laura Camis Wrang.
There you go. About audio description. And I'm probably not exaggerating if I say that you are the foremost audio describer in Denmark.
I'm amongst, we're only very few in Denmark who are doing this, but so I'd say we're about two who work steadily at Denmark's radio, the national television, and then three work with the live audio description for live programs. We're two work on drama series and documentaries, longer documentaries, and movies, and a few more are now sort of starting to break into the area, and we're no more than a handful who actually write the script and do the voiceover for audio description in the visual department on television and in the movies, and so it's a small organization, and slowly will develop because as we'll probably talk about, the area will sort of widen and open into a larger field within a very short while, I expect.
Yes, we can get back to that at the very end. It's a very appropriate place to talk about the future. So, yes. We'll just touch on that, and then I think a small introduction, which is like sort of a few minutes about how is it actually done, about your work process. Work process.
Well, first of all, my name is Laura Camis Wrang. I'm an actress and storyteller, and I've been a teacher within the communication area for many years. I've taught people, lecturers and teachers at the university and in high positions in companies, to sort of feel comfortable about presenting what they know at larger conferences, how to adapt from one language to another. So with everything that I've done, it's always been about how do you convey the story in what you want to tell. And so with the acting, it's always about the emotions and body language. And with the storytelling, it's about details and descriptions. And telling, being a teacher, it's also communicating what's the most important factor of what you're talking about. And then in the last years, working with the audio description, the editor's vicious knife, kill your darlings, has then become one of the gifts that you have to learn to live with, which is all that you would like to share. You only have 5 words. So it's very important to sort of realize.
A lot like subtitling.
Exactly.
You know, it's the same. If there isn't room for it, it's no use, because nobody will be able to understand it. You have the available space. Sorry to interrupt. Go on.
Yes. Well, less is more work. And that's one of the very sort of raw truths of any trade, but especially this trade, I think. The reason I sort of I'm so interested in this area, and it is because my own mother became hard of seeing the last 4 years, and then she became blind the last year. And I didn't know that what I was doing, how I was communicating with her, how I was making her feel comfortable in the different settings that she was sort of being placed in, that she didn't have any idea of what were, that was something called audio description, something that people actually work very hard on building the confidence in sharing and relating with the person who is actually accepting this communication, which is different, putting words to what the person sees or would like to see, so that they have a reference with other people to what is going on around them. And then this was back in 2013, and I had no idea about it, because in Denmark, if you're not part of the Danish Blind Association, you're not automatically invited into all the different remedies and technical facilities that are technical aids to help a person who can't see. So I was never introduced to any of that. But then at one point, a few years later, my voice acting colleague and the audio describer that I sort of was taught how to do audio description from, she said, well, I have a bit of a cough and I'm doing a live audio description in the theater as an actress. Would you like to help me? And I said, of course. What are you talking about? Of course, I'll be there. And so what we did was we came into a process where she had a video, and this is for live audio description. This is, and for the theater, which we saw the video of the play, and then we had the script for the play. And then we would sort of figure out what moments in what we were watching would be interesting. So change of place, change of person on stage, differences in physical movement, showing how the person feels differently, different effects and the like, is what we made a manuscript. And in that, very poignantly, with very few words, helped to set the stage. And the reason I'm saying this is because this is actually what you're doing when you're doing audio description. When you're working with something that is live on stage, you have to be much more flexible, because on stage things can go wrong. When you're working with television and you're working with movies, you're actually quite lucky, because what is there is what is there, and that's what you have to deal with. But the same flexibility of being able to sort of shorten your sentences from one moment to the next is also necessary with a movie or a television program, because you might have seen one version and then the version has been cut into a tighter version when you receive it. And so you have to adapt. Then you have to be the editor again and then edit what you would like to say at the spur of the moment, which means that you have to work on how many ways could you actually say this as simply as possible. Anyway, so what happened was I helped her out, and then we did a wonderful live theater production, and then she asked me to come and help her with the 2 productions, because that's, again, one of the things. Audio description is added at the very end, just like subtitles, just like that. You get it right before the deadline. And you might, with a movie, you might be able to get it a bit before, so that you can actually sort of be lucky with the cinema movies. With audio description, we can actually be lucky to get it a little before. But what happens is that you have to be very flexible with the assignments that you get. So you might get an assignment, and then it's a documentary, and you have 2 weeks, and then you have to give in your audio description. And what the first thing you have to look at when you're talking about audio description is, if you see a documentary, the usual thing people will do with a documentary, they'll have a title, and the person starts speaking, and then there will be a place where this person is, or there'll be a name. So the name and the title and the place where the person is. And this will be added into the movie. And the thing is, the blind person, or especially the blind person or the visually impaired person, will have a scanner, and that scanner might be able to pick up the text that's being underneath the film, or which has been added afterwards. But the text that is inside the movie at a different layer is not going to be caught by the scanner. So this is the absolute, if we think of it as a Rubik's Cube, it's the basic layer, the most important layer is who is speaking, where are they, and why are they speaking? So Dr. Anna Louise, she is speaking from the hospital in St. Hans. And so anyway, we know this is a doctor, we know it's an important person. There is a weight to what this person is saying. And usually they'll place it while the person is speaking, which means, what do you do? Can you place it before she speaks? Or can you say, Dr. Anna, and then she says something from Sankt Hans Hospital afterwards? How can you fit things around the person speaking so the blind person and the visually impaired person can actually listen to this person as somebody who has something important to say? So that's the basic one, which is something you cannot get around.
Yes.
Title, name, title, and place. And then you have the next layer, which is the layer that has to do with a bit more description of where are they and what are they doing and how are they doing it. It's a descriptive layer. If there's some time afterwards, then you can sort of say Anna is walking through the park and she's walking towards the hospital with all the patients. And the patients are looking through the windows and she's waving to them. And this sort of waving to the patients, it shows a relationship, which is the top one. If she's smiling to the patients and they're smiling to her, we know the top layer of the Rubik's Cube is saying the mimicry, the body language, and the relationship between these factors or these people is a nice and friendly relationship. If she walks towards the hospital and the person who was in the window disappears and the blinds go down and the doctor's steps start walking much more disciplined, like a march, that's a different scenario. Now we're probably into the drama department. So I'd like to say that there is just like a Rubik's Cube, you have the first layer, which is what can't you get around? You have to say this, you have to mention it, because if it's not mentioned, the person speaking could be anybody, could be anywhere. And so the second layer is, so what are they doing? How are they doing it? And are they dressed to do it? Or are they not dressed to do it? Are we doing a comedy and it's a fisherman is standing in the kitchen trying to make bagels or cupcakes? Or whatever, is there a comedy element in this? Is there something not right in the picture? But basically it's who is where and why are they saying this? And then of course, description layer, is that correlating with what we expect from this person? And then the top one is, how does this person feel about it? Is there any possibility of talking about how the person uses their mimicry and their body language and how they relate to other people? So with a Rubik's Cube, you have a different layer, which when you go into drama, the drama department, there is the other element of time. And that's a bit more difficult because if you have a flashback or you have a flash forward, what happens there? How do you actually, usually there's a flashback if somebody's reading a letter. And that letter was from my dearest one, I'm not here anymore. But if you're reading this letter, the person is dead, dear me. Then blah, 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 blah. But how was that person feeling? A flashback, going back, telling the story of that person. So which words would you use to quickly tell the blind person, this person, the patient from the first hospital that Anna worked at, sits in the window and she's writing her letter in the moonlight. How can you fit in something that will place the person speaking in a time frame before what's happening or after what's happening? But again, kill your darlings. You usually have 5 words. You usually have to be very concise, but getting to know language, which of course many of you, I'm sure, are very interested in the different value criteria of words, the differences of, this is something that you need to know a lot about when you're doing audio description. How, if somebody is sad, are they So how many different ways can you talk about being sad? Are they throwing themselves off a cliff, or are they just sort of gently, a tear is going down across their chin? Or else, is it just a tension? They're not breathing. She breathes again. Suddenly that is the relaxation of, oh, I can now talk to somebody again. Or suddenly there's a tear in the eye. But the most important thing is, whatever you're doing, you have to be true to the product. You have to be true to what has the director decided that he wants to communicate. How can you sort of go and be true to that value of communication, which is set visually in front of you, and not sort of go anticipate something. You can't sort of, we usually say, do not mention the name of the person before the person is named in the video. Sometimes you do have to, just a few frames before, if that's important, and that person is not going to be there afterwards, and that person was crucial for us to know about, then you have to sort of bend a rule. But usually you are going to be, you have to be true to what you see in the pace that you see whatever you're seeing, so that you're not anticipating and not going to give away something which would will hinder the person in really getting a true experience of what is going on. The reason I see audio description as very important is, first of all, it can give the blind and the visually impaired person what's it called, a common reference with the other people experiencing the movie, so that they can talk together about what's going on at the same level. And sometimes if they have a friend or somebody telling them what's going on, the friend will miss out on something that they might have liked to talk about afterwards. So in this way, if the person listening to the audio description and the person just enjoying the movie through their eyes, they will have different ways of looking at the movie. They will have different experiences. And in this way, they can enrich each other with their dialogue afterwards, but on a common reference ground, which I think is very important, so that both parties can enjoy a movie or the information that's given. And that's the whole idea, I think, about the entertainment industry, is to give a great, share a good moment. Got it.
Okay, back again, and this time with a headset so that Laura can hear me properly. Okay, so thank you for, this is a very good explanation of the mindset and how you think your way into an audio description. I think it covers most of what people want to know when it's not something they work with. So technically, it's you write your audio description script, and then it's you in front of the microphone with some sound insulation. How do you do it?
I'm very old school, and the people I work with are also very old school. We do not have any computer systems with the full program, because we're so few. We're only about 2 doing the drama and the documentaries and the movie scripts. And then there are 3 who do sort of continuity voiceover for television. So they both do the call outs for the next program is, and please welcome, blah, blah. And they also do the audio description live for cake shows and X Factor sort of live television. And so they're really cool. But they do have small bits that are recorded, and then they have, so they can prepare something there. They can prepare themselves to what is the scenario and what is the energy and how do I have, what kind of words and language should I use? What is the audience? You have to constantly think what kind of audience is going to be there when it's live. And again, how few words can I use, and what would be exciting or fun or something the person listening might want to talk about with the other people, something that's a bit sensational. If you can pick up something juicy that you can, in very few words, give to the person listening. But with the documentaries and drama series and movies, the whole process starts with accepting the movie, downloading it, and then watching the movie, finding out where are the pauses, cue to the last words spoken. This is the timing, time cue. What is the last word spoken? Text cue. And then, so in one way, you have three sort of, you divide your paper into three sections, and the last section is where you can sort of write your audio description. And then you sort of go through your script with the movie and find out, well, less is more, which means how much can you cut out of what you would like to say so that just the essential bits are there, but how can you spice those words, the few words that you have, in such a way that they create a picture within the head of the person listening. So this is the challenge. How can you actually use words, as few words as possible, but words that will give color and drama and create interest towards what's going on in the visual side. But this is what you do, and it takes a long time. It's not easy, especially old school, where you actually have to sort of go on your computer and go back, listen. Then you sort of, but it depends on how you work, because I would sort of say that I use 15 minutes. For 15 minutes, I use at least 3 hours to do 15 minutes. And this is one thing that, so each 15 for the first process, it's 3 hours per 15 minutes or 10 minutes, depending on how dense the drama is, how much you have to write. And then you go through one.
Is that to write your script? Yeah.
Yes, to write the script for the drama, I would use at least 3 hours per 15 minutes for the first one, and then edit again, and then it's about half that time. And then depending on the difficulty of the language and the, you will go through it depending on what kind of person you are. I usually go through my script 3 or 4 times to make sure that it's just the way I want it. But
and then when it's right,
when I've written the manuscript, then I go into
all your bases. Then you
sound, and I have my script, and the technician has the script, and then we go through the movie from the start to the end, and we fit in all the different sound bites into the sound, an extra sound file, which is added underneath the video. It's sort of incorporated when on television, you listen to the television program. It can either be incorporated in the movie and you see it, you hear it as you see the movie, but it can also be on a different track, so that the movie without the soundtrack with the audio description will be shown on one channel and can also be found on a different channel with the audio description. It depends on what kind of mode the television company you talk to has. In the cinemas there in Denmark, we have an app for the telephone called Movie Reading. And this app, when you sit in the movie theater, it will synchronize with the sound from the cinema with your telephone. So as you sit there with your headset in the cinema, in your seat, the person next to you will not necessarily hear your audio description in your ear. They will be able to sit completely like everybody else, watch the movie, just hear the sound, but you will have added to your experience from the movie the sound which describes in the pauses, in between the music, in between, as I usually say, when the music starts and the drama unfolds, the visually impaired or the blind person needs to have words to find out and follow what is going on.
Okay, but to get back to the recording, you go into a sound studio. You never record yourself, send off. Does everybody work the same way? It's always a sound studio.
It depends if I wouldn't think that you would have the possibility to do audio description on your own, unless it's for YouTube videos, small shoot, you can do that at home. But for a professional production, you need a professional technician, and also because you have such a small window of opportunity to actually deliver the voiceover that you're interested in sharing, and for that to be a flow and not stressful and be nice to hear, and sort of not something that I'd like to say that the audio description is just a helping whisper in the ear as the movie sort of starts and goes along. It has to be in a flow. If you're noticing the audio description as the film goes along, you will choose not to listen to it if it bothers you. So the most important thing is be true to the movie, be true to your listener, be kind and be friendly. It's like that extra little hand in the back of your, the part of the lower of the back, if you're being sort of gently nudged forward.
Yes, absolutely.
But if it's something that goes da 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 da, and they can hear that you're stressed and there's so much going on, la, 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 it can be exhausting. And
absolutely,
the blind person is already dealing with a lot of different impressions. So that's why it has to be few words that are concise, and that create the picture that's necessary to understand the sound from the film that you're listening to.
Absolutely. I think a lot of the people in the audience who do subtitling will absolutely think of this. It's absolutely parallel to our own product, which is a successful subtitling is one that you don't notice. You just have a feeling that you understand this language. You have a feeling, you've had, as much as it's humanly possible, the same experience as the native speaker watching this film. Whether you speak another language or you are hearing sight impaired or blind, you have the same level experience, and that is always our goal, isn't it? So in terms of, when you describe your process, it's very clear that it takes time to create a good product. And I'm also, let me just interject, because I think we forgot to cover that the your voice is there, like you said, in a supporting role, in a supporting function. So even though you're an actress yourself, you have to take care not to sound like one of the, you can't be dull. A machine audio description to me is a nightmare. I've heard a few, it's terrible. But you have to not conflict with anything that's going on. Again, just like a subtitler.
It's you are the friendly assistant. And but if you're dealing with drama, then the pace of the movie and your if there's something going on which is very dramatic and you keep telling it like this and that, then you're not in sync with the energy of the movie. So of course, if there's something going on, the energy that you put into it, just a little bit of going, so if you follow the heartbeat of the scene, you can actually go a bit faster and say, listen, she was walking very quickly and there, up the stairs, suddenly she opens the door. And if you can just sort of add a little bit of that for me that's something that I have received as a good comment, that those tense moments when something dramatic is happening, it doesn't matter if you sort of just follow that gently, but but everything has to be as under your breath as possible, neutral as possible, because it's also called, in Danish, it's called synstolkning, which is what you see, and you do say that you have to be descriptive,
yes,
and not sort of put a layer upon that description which is colored by what you feel and your emotions and how you sort of as neutral as possible within that description. But of course, just choosing the words that you choose will have a hierarchy. When you decide what words you choose, they will have a coloring from what you find is more important or stronger. There are words that are stronger and there are words that are weaker in a description. So of course, that all influences the final
absolutely
receiving the text.
But I like what you said about the heartbeat, because it's sort of, you have to follow the heartbeat of the film and the heartbeat of the scene, and not drag it down, but also not inflate. You just have to be this discreet, friendly presence there.
Yeah, it's like just like sound waves. You see the sound waves on the screen. Well, if they're doing high peaks, then you're doing something wrong, because the person listening is sort of going, "Oh my goodness!"
It's going to be a bit, yeah, absolutely.
Sort of that sort of soft little sort of supportive, a murmur of which keeps you in tune with what's going on. I think that's very important.
Absolutely.
But of course, there are different genres, there are different moods and tempo and different, and documentaries are one thing.
But there's, sorry to interrupt you. It's just that we don't have that much time left. But I was just going to mention that, of course, there's film, there's documentaries, but there's also the municipality and an information video about something important. And that may also need all kinds of visual content, will need audio description. So it's a very wide field, really. And what we
up more and more. I mean, in Denmark in June, all the municipalities will have to sort of be accessible in their presentations on, and they've gotten to the PDFs, the written material. And if somebody says video, they go, no, but we're good with the written material. And soon they will get to the point where they say, okay, well, videos will also have to be described.
Absolutely. But from an adjacent field, when you ask them about, or even local TV stations, when you ask them about the subtitling and it's mandatory, they just go, oh, we're waiting for the automatic, so maybe a bit of magical thinking there.
Automatic voices are a bit difficult still. In a movie that I saw with an automatic voice, it was in the English version, it was, I'm going on a date, and it was all sort of do. And in the Danish one, it was, I'm going on a date, but with the intention of understanding 16th of February, but not a friendly
date. Date,
so,
like the actual, oh dear, that is not so good. Yeah.
you know, there are things that are missed when it's a computer, especially because it can recognize some things, but it won't. Maybe in 10 years' time, they will be able to recognize everything. And I don't know. But at the moment, we're still very important because we do have that sort of the
Edge.
possibility of using our minds to sort
Mm.
of decide what is
Yes,
important.
absolutely. Now, lots of people are interested in this field, but there are not many places where you can train within this field, within the field of audio description. I mean, have you heard of, do you know of anywhere that has any formal training? Because
Yes,
not
Joel Snyder in America is
Mhm.
very active and does courses all the way around the world, and will be able to sort of be invited to do courses because that's what he does. And he actually invites people to come to the States, and they can get a degree after a course there. But in Barcelona, in Spain, there's also at the university the possibility of going to a course and getting a degree. In Stockholm, there's a company there, and in Sweden there's some places, and in London as well there are places, but it's not something that
No.
everyone. The way I was trained was the old school way of delivering my version of something to my friend, who then gave it back to me and said, "Whoop, this is what I'm finally doing in the paper, in the script." And I'm going, how did she notice that? How did she see that? Okay, fine. Well, now I know what to do. Oh, how did you see this? And that, of course, is more important. And so the hard work of training, but that's one possibility you can do. Many of the different programs like YouTube, there is a audio description possibility in some of these for very short videos. And in that way, you can actually sort of start working with what could work. And then if you know somebody who's blind or visually impaired, or somebody who works as an audio describer, I would definitely sort of meet with people, talk to them, and create little groups, get some mentoring, and get the dialogue going about why is this, how is it different what I'm doing when I write, but the written word and the spoken word, there is a difference. So how can you make that important and go and discover what is the difference? Listen to a movie, look at the text, listen to what's going on in the audio description, and do the detective work. If you can't go to a course, then you really have to sort of do some research, and there are books to get as well on this area. But as the media keeps changing and styles change, it's very important to have a dialogue with somebody, and especially the user. If you are in any way able to talk to somebody who will benefit from being helped, then you'll also realize which areas this person does not want any help within that area. And you will not do it for that person. And one of the most important things is you can't win them all.
No.
And the way that I do my audio description is different from my colleagues' way of doing audio description. And this is the thing that will happen. You will have, with your experience, you will have something that you will bring to the field. And but you always have to be open to sort of saying, okay, well, this doesn't work. Fine. How can I do it differently?
Okay, so that is an amazing handful of really practical tips here. There is practice with using the YouTube function. Find written materials. Find a course, perhaps. I think I think it's okay. I hope it's okay, Petra and Sandra, that we ask if anybody wants to know. They can either send an email to the AVTE email, or they can send one to Petra or Sandra, and they will pass it on to us. We'll try and construct some sort of list of resources or information that we have, if there is any interest in this, because It sounds like there is a way forward, even if you don't live near a university that has a course in this. That is really good. And I think we touched on the future a little bit, which is that this field is opening up because there is more and more content.
In 2025, all companies in Denmark, if they have a website on which they place a video, this video will have to be accessible. Some people will say, oh, well, we've made a little small description which can be read underneath the video. But some videos actually need to be, the description needs to be said along with the video as you watch the video. Otherwise, it'll be incongruent. You won't understand it, and especially if it's an information video or something that's very important, life or death. This is how you use your diabetes pen, or this is how you make sure that your vaccination is right, or whatever, you know. These information movies will have to have an audio description way. And one of the important things I think is it is important to say is that it's not only the visually impaired and the blind who can benefit from listening to something. If you are stressed, if you have had a brain concussion, if you have any of the other, if there are any sort of cognitive challenges that you experience, if you've had, well, if you are word blind and you can't follow the text which is going on underneath, if you're new to the language and you feel insecure and you know that you have to ask somebody about this and what was the name, and if you are physically, if you are physically not able to use a mouse while you are watching because your hand is in a cast or whatever, being able to hear the instructions while you're watching is something that might really benefit a very large group of people. And this is something that people are not so aware of because they don't listen to an audio description because, well, I can see, I can hear, so I don't need this extra thing. But in Finland, they say up to 20% of society can benefit from both listening to a supportive description alongside the video version of an information movie. And I think this is very important. A little added help, but it helps a larger group of people.
It really does. And as somebody who quite often uses visual content as a form of radio because I'm doing something else at the same time, you know, you can also benefit from the audio description in that case. Well, I think we've gone way over our time. This was fascinating. Thank you so much, Laura. And thank you to all of you, all my colleagues. And if you have any questions, anything, just feel free to ask. And thank you very much.
Well, thank you for asking. And I hope everyone will have a great experience.